Today I'm going to show you about a particular kind of propagation which you can use on some perennials and some woody plants. This is not the most common type of propagation, which is tip cuttings, and I've done a segment on that before. But this type of propagation, which is root cuttings, is particularly useful for certain plants, and it's really the only way you can reproduce some cultivars of certain plants. And here at Grow Wild, one of the plants that we grow that's incredibly popular is Stokesia, Stokes aster. This is a native, as is everything at Grow Wild. This has beautiful, big, kind of lavender blue, flat, semi-daisy-like flowers for a long period in the summer. And there are a number of cultivars of this plant. And the only way, because none of them are self-fertile. That means if you collect a seed off of, say, a Blue Danube, which is an old tried and true variety of Stokesia, maybe you bought it at the garden center, you collect that seed and you sow it. If there's any good seed in there, it won't come true. No varieties of this plant come true from seed. So the only way that you can produce an exact likeness of the plant you have in your garden is through root cuttings. This is a plant where this is how this is propagated. This particular variety I want to talk about because it is new, pretty new on the market, and it has a really nice habit. One of the big problems with Stokesia typically is that these big bloomscapes come up and then they flop. They sort of fall over, and that gives it, it's not a really nice habit in the garden. Flowers are beautiful, but you wish they would stand up. Well, guess what? This one does. And the name of this variety is Peachy's Pick. And sometimes people are confused by that because they think it refers to the color, but it doesn't. It was found in Mississippi by a lady whose name was Peachy. I guess it showed up in her garden, I'm not sure. But anyway, she selected it and it became officially known as Peachy's Pick. It is that same big, beautiful, kind of bright lavender blue that just graces our summer gardens here in the South. And it stands up. It does not flop. It's a wonderful plant and a rapid increaser. And I have taken, we grow ours in pots obviously, but the interesting thing about root cuttings is you do them in the winter. You want to wait until there's been a really hard freeze and the plants are gone dormant. Now Stokesia doesn't die down. It keeps a rosette of green leaves in the winter. So this plant, although it looks like it might be growing, it's actually asleep. The top, nothing's going to happen to this top until next spring when it starts to warm up again. All the action is in all plants is in the roots. And look at these big, thick, white, ropey roots. This is what you're going to use to make more. This is a winter project. If you've got a plant like this in your garden, a Stokesia you want to increase, what you would do is take a spading fork and pry the big root ball out of the ground and wash it off. You can see I've already washed off the soil around the outside of this root mass. You can see what a big root mass. This was a root cutting I made last winter, by the way. This is less than a year old, this plant. And look at the roots on it. Now I'm going to show you how you do this. Wash off that root ball so you can expose these big white roots, and then just cut off segments. I'll just show you how on this one. Now, important thing, remember which end was up. In other words, the crown of the plant is up. The little root tips going down into the ground, that's down, obviously, but it doesn't hurt to say it. The plant root knows which way is up. So when you cut it, don't just cut a mass of them and lay them down and forget. What I do, you're going to make segments out of a long root like this. We'll make several plants. What I do to remember the up end is I cut the up end straight across. I cut the down end at an angle. There's no mistaking which is which when I cut it that way. Straight across for up, at an angle for down. You know what the orientation of that root is. Now, the thing to remember is when you cut that off, I have to cut that straight across again because that's now the up end. Angle. There's a root cutting. And these nice big thick white roots like this, each one will make a plant. That's 3 root cuttings that I've made off of this one root. You can see I could get 100 off of one plant. You can produce a ton of these. Not all of them will take necessarily. Sometimes, you know, nothing in nature is 100%. But if you do this technique, you'll get a huge number of plants. I mean, the vast majority of them grow for me, and it's not hard to do. Now, you've got these roots. What do? If you want to make a lot of them, you can take a flat like this, which is what we use in the trade. But a lot of the time, you can get these at your garden center if you're buying flats of pansies or something in the spring. The 6-packs will come in these flats. It has a solid bottom. It's not the daisy web tray that things come in. These are seed flats. And what you're going to do, you can lay these, if you have a flat like this, you can just lay them in the ground just below the surface. You want that top end, this end, just at the surface. And you're going to angle it so the lower end is down a little more than the top end. You can see I'll do it. These will make pretty big plants pretty fast, so you're not crowding them. You don't want to do that. Slanty end down, right, just tuck it right out. You can see there's the tip. I'll just leave it so you can see it just a little bit there. That's the way you do it. Now, suppose you don't want to do, 50 of these. Suppose you just want to reproduce a few for another place in your garden. Just any old pot you've got is fine. This is a soilless potting mix, by the way, that's in both this flat and this pot. Same thing. This particular brand is Fafford, but you can find anything at a garden center. Pro Mix is a really good one that you can buy. I've got this third cutting. I'm going to put it, what you want to do in a pot like this is you can stick them pretty much straight up and down. 45-degree angle is good. Pretty sharp and just below. And I could put probably 3 in there if I wanted to do more than one. Now, what do you do with these after you've stuck them? It's the middle of the winter. That's okay. You can take this flat and you can put it outside, put it on the ground, because ground is a good insulator. You can, if you've got lights, actually, if you have fluorescent lights like a grow light setup, you can put it under that. And that's great. They will sprout over time. Or you can put it outside in a protected spot and where it will be insulated on the ground, like I said, and they'll sprout in the spring. Don't let it dry out. That's the main thing. If you put it somewhere, don't forget it, because the one sure death is if the soil dries out for some reason and the roots shrivel up, they aren't going to sprout. It may take several months for them to show up, but show up they will. And this is a really easy method of increase for these plants. And Stokesia is not the only one that you can do this with. A lot of varieties of garden phlox are done with winter root cuttings, as well as there's a named variety of butterfly weed called Hello Yellow, and root cuttings are the only way to ensure that you get the different odd colors of butterfly weed that are available. From seed, they may go back to their regular orange. There's another, a little spring wildflower called Shooting Star, Dodecatheon, which has root cuttings, and I'll pretend this is one. With that, what you would do is just take the fleshy root and pull up so you snap it off at the crown and plant that. It'll have a little bit of crown tissue on it, and that will sprout a new plant. And you can grow Dodecatheon from seed also, which I've done many times, but boy, I'll tell you what, root cuttings are years faster to make a big plant. So there are woodies too that you can do. Anything that basically likes to spread by roots. Stoloniferous native azaleas, Itea, obviously, a wonderful shrub called Alabama snow wreath, styrax. There are a bunch of different shrubs that you can also go out and do these root cuttings in the winter, and in the spring they'll come up and give you brand new plants. So have at it. It isn't hard at all, as you can see. I mean, the big deal is basically digging up the plant and washing it off. And you'll have a bunch of new plants to give away to your friends and to increase in your garden. So enjoy.